I'm privileged to work for a company which has afforded me the opportunity to travel the world, attend interesting and wonderful events, identify talent, such as a certain gentleman sitting on my left here, and trying to shape their careers and try and make them into something as their careers unfold. What I wanted to do today was just start off running through a presentation, just talking about sports marketing, talking about what we as a company do, how we go about, and what we call and define as sports marketing. The basic agenda is just, I'd like to talk about the role of sports marketing, investing our marketing working budget, how do we find the next Wilson Kipsang or Dennis Kimetto, and then a basic wrap-up. I think before we talk about what we're trying to do, let's have a look at who we're trying to reach. So let's have a look at the consumers. There was a time when a text message was the way of communication, and it seemed like it was a remarkable tool. But we've subsequently moved on from that quite considerably, and consumers behave, their behaviors are changing rapidly. One of the things we used to look at is that we used to talk about them loving sport. Right now, that's not the case. We need to define that not only do they love sports, they're also more engaged in it, so they actually play sport as well as being in the cheering squad. That's a picture of the London Olympics, and what we're trying to identify is that people actually consume sports every day. We're all just in the back. We're talking about football, we're talking about the rugby coming up on the weekend, the football coming up on the weekend, etc. So we consume it every day in our every lives. Sport is not only transactional, it's an emotional thing. Right now, the consumers are actually accessing sport through multiple channels, and they are highly connected. And that's something that we've got to identify and try and reach them, because they're actually consuming it in different areas, in different places. They're highly engaged within the digital world. Many of us in this room grew up when, as I pointed out, text messaging was king. Now there's a different form. Like Atto pointed out earlier, the hummingbird sort of consumer. They're into one thing and then they're onto something else. They're in this medium and then they're in another medium. Even today, I have a 13-year-old son, and I talk to him about Facebook. As far as he's concerned, Facebook is a non-entity. He's moved on from that. It's for old people, okay? For him, it's all about Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram, okay? So that's what we're dealing with. It's an ever-changing world, and to reach that consumer, you have to be able to identify and engage with the consumers. So let's dive into sports marketing. From an Adidas perspective, for us, sports marketing is about supporting the brand through assets and preparing Adidas for the future of sport. Okay. I was chatting to Errol backstage, and that statement is no different for any of us in this room that are in the game to try and sponsor events or athletes. What do we bring to the brand? There was a time when we just thought it was about presence on the field of play. But that's not quite the case anymore. It's an authentication of multi-sport brand positioning. It's an endorsement of product stories and innovations. And it's a protection of our brand marks and trademarks. For us, the Adidas brand mission is quite simply to be the leading sports brand in the world. Not something we are right now, but something we aim to become. What do? We secure and manage the best multi-sports assets portfolio to support the Adidas brand mission. And what do? Sports marketing is about getting the right athletes to promote the right products in the right place at the right time. Something else that Errol and I agreed is a generic statement for all companies that sponsor sport. For us, it's all about the brand strategy and the market reality. And we have various steps that we all go through, but for us it's about planning, Every year we do a portfolio analysis, which is quite simplistic. We look at the athlete portfolio that we have, and we look at who's available on the market and who that next generation is. Atto was asking some questions today. He was asking, who is the next one after Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price? My team and I firmly believe her name is Ramona Birchall. Okay? We can ask the same question about some of the youngsters in Jamaica. Who's that next 100-meter sprinter after Mr. Bolt and Mr. Blake and Mr. Kamar Bailey-Cole? We feel it's a kid called Michael O'Hara. That's what we talk about when we talk about portfolio analysis, to identify that next generation. We scout them, we go and negotiate with them and their agents and their entourages to get them to become Adidas ambassadors. And then most importantly, I say most importantly, we activate them. That's what we do successfully, I think, with Wilson and Dennis, as an example. It's not about the fact that they're wearing our shirts and shoes. It's what we do with them, how we activate them. We're privileged from an Adidas perspective to have a few global icons. And I'm not going to sit here and try and name all of them, but I'm going to take 3 to try and illustrate their importance. This is a guy many of you in the room won't know. I know Mr. Bolden will know who this is. This is a guy called RG3. He plays quarterback for the Washington Redskins. He is what we think that next generation, i.e. the next generation consumer, identifies with. And we think he's going to make a difference for us in the US. Another gentleman by the name of Derrick Rose, D. Rose. We've created an entire story about him. He has his own range of shoes, his own range of product, etc. He plays for the Chicago Bulls. He's had a bit of bad luck with injuries of late, but he is going to be back. And then somebody else that we're all very familiar with, a young gentleman called Lionel Messi, who has won the Ballon d'Or 4 times. Right now, I would probably say quite openly and honestly that he's maybe a notch lower than a certain gentleman called Cristiano Ronaldo. But we are very privileged to have Lionel Messi in our stable. What do? We invest multiple dollars in a multiple number of sports. Let's take a look at some of the Adidas athletes that we have that take up some of those multiple dollars. We're privileged enough, and I'm not going to go through all of them, just to outline some of those. Some of them that we've been with for a long, long time. Zinedine Zidane, Haile Gebrselassie, who have moved on to that ambassador role for us. But we're privileged enough to have the likes of Jessica Ennis, Johan Blake, Mr. Van Persie, who plays for the wonderful Manchester United team. And there's no bias whatsoever expressed there. And then moving on, we also have some key Adidas partnerships. And you'll understand where I'm trying to get to by doing all this in a minute. We're very fortunate enough that we're a sponsor of UEFA and FIFA. So those 2 events really authenticate what we're trying to do from a product perspective, an individual perspective, and a business perspective. Our history, from an Adidas perspective, is all about football and running. That's when Adidas first made shoes. He made 2 different types of shoes. He spoke to athletes and produced football boots and track and field spikes. So that's our heritage. And if you look at the rest of the events, we're also very proud to obviously have a multiple number of clubs, as in football clubs, with us. We're an NBA sponsor, we're an IAAF sponsor, etc. This slide is a little incorrect because it talks about we produce products that make athletes better for every Olympic sport. There's a sport they call cricket, and much as I'd like it to be an Olympic sport, it isn't. But for the rest of them are. But what we're trying to illustrate is that we're a brand that invests a lot of time and effort in both athletes and product innovation and sponsorships of different federations, etc., in an array of sports. Let's look at why we're here. Let's talk about running. And now I'm getting into my real comfort zone. From an Adidas running perspective, we find that there are 3 key pillars for us. Those pillars are quite easily individuals, federations, and events. From an individual perspective, we're fortunate enough to have the likes of Jessica Ennis, Jen Sir, the lady that Atta was referring to that was doing pole vault in Herald Square in New York, where we had people hanging out of buildings trying to experience this pole vault competition. Sally Pearson, and one of the 2 top high jumpers in the world right now called Bogdan Bondarenko. From a running perspective, right now, it's probably a little more impressive And we are fortunate enough to have the two gentlemen in the room. Mr. Dennis Kimeto, the current world record holder, Mr. Wilson Kipsang, the former world record holder. And then there's 4 other individuals there. A gentleman called Mr. Jeffrey Mutai, Patrick McCaw, Emmanuel Mutai, and Haile Gebrselassie. And I'm proud to say that these 6 individuals are the 6 fastest individuals over the marathon of all time. And that is quite an achievement for myself, and without patting myself on the back, I'm fortunate enough that I signed each and every one of those athletes. I'm going to flip through this real quick. Federations, of course, we have a number of federations that we have under contract. They mean different things for us in different markets, and there's different elements as to why we have them. I won't bore you with that, but we're very privileged to have the likes of Trinidad and Tobago for a couple of reasons, Ethiopia, etc. I mean, myself and Calvin, who you'll see a little later, were chatting last night. We were just talking about the 2 leading federations in Africa right now, I have to say, are Ethiopia and Kenya. And I'll be more than willing to try and help to make sure that changes, that South Africa become a close second or even first. But we're privileged in that we have Ethiopia under contract. From an event perspective, we have the IAAF, which offers us a platform to promote both our individuals and products and to try and reach the general consumer, to try and educate them about our brand. We're proud of our sponsorship of the 3 world majors, which is the Boston Marathon, the London Marathon, and the Berlin Marathon. We're also very proud that we sponsor over 150 events across the world, which gives us a touch point with over 1.2 million participants, never mind all the added benefits that you get about being associated to an event. I think the key thing, and this is where Errol and I were agreeing backstage, any brand, as in whether it's South African breweries or whether it's Adidas, can provide dollars. Anybody has that ability to come to an event and just merely say, there's the money. And there was a time when people would think that that was the be-all and end-all of sponsorship. We've got the event. Now we've got boards and we've got 15 VIP tickets, etc. That thinking is long gone. Any rights holder can provide boxes that you check. The boards at 10 kilometers, the boards at the finish, the gantry, etc. What we want is the right partner that brings more, okay? And the right partner gets more. And I know this pains a lot of people in this room when they see this picture. But what we're trying to illustrate here is that there's a common goal will lead to success. Adidas is the sponsor of the All Blacks. And so much time and money is invested in them as a symbol. For us as a global brand, we feel that they're a global property. And it's a home run for the rugby team, as in the Adidas rugby team, when, based on all the efforts that they put into this, they come out and they're the winner of the World Cup. But just so you know, as a proud South African, I'm always reminding them they've only won 2, and we've also won 2, so they need to calm themselves. I think Errol actually said it nicely, is that there's 3 elements. There's the asset, there are consumers, there's the brand. And that little area in the red, that's that sweet spot. When you hit that sweet spot, you've actually achieved a successful sponsorship. As I said in the beginning, sport is emotional. It's not transactional. There was a time when we would think about sport being about the return on investment. That has changed. Now, it's about the return on opportunity or objectives. Whatever your objectives were going into it, to make sure that you get them out. It's not only about money. It's also about it being a brand exercise. In closure, this is a slide which, for some of you sitting way back at the back there, you probably think, I can't even read this. But for us, it's to shape our brand profile, to push the brand desire. There are elements, that's the authentication, the protection, the presence, and the endorsement, which all we feel, in that sweet spot, provide what we think is the home run in sports marketing. Thank you very much.